Hello. Okay, so today we're going to do a book review, which is something a little bit different than what I've been doing. Today I want to review a book called Mother. It is a fairy tale retelling about the witch in the woods. It's the very first book actually in this Dark Grim series, and it is amazing. So this book actually has a prologue, and I know everybody says don't do prologues. People don't. I love prologues, especially if the prologue is going to give you information that you're not going to naturally glean from the story, because obviously this story doesn't take place at the same time as the prologue. The prologue that in this story actually takes place 100 years in the past and explains how Sorelia, the witch in the woods, ends up in the woods. And what we find is we find a young girl who had fallen in love, had had promises made to her, and then all of those promises were broken. Her father comes back from war or fighting for some king, and she's pregnant. And her father decides that he's going to kill the baby and send her to a convent. And so she runs for her life. Her baby clutched to her chest, still bleeding from having given birth, runs for her life. And she runs into these enchanted woods. And when she gets to these enchanted woods, she recites something that she had been told at a lullaby or something from her mother, and begs the woods to protect her. And the woods, in a way to protect her, take her heart and her baby and pull them into the ground. And so for 100 years, Sorelia lives in these woods inside this clearing that she had found that she can't leave it, and no mortal thing can enter it. Fast forward 100 years, we come to Maya. Maya is basically in the same predicament that Sorelia was, except that she has no family. She's been an orphan for most of her life, and the village people have been taking care of her. And she had gone to work in this lord's home and had fallen in love with the lord's son. And the son had fallen in love with her, which led to conceiving a child. Well, when the Lord found out, he decided she was not good enough for his son and declared her a witch, which turned the very people who had raised her, because you have to remember, she was an orphan. So she lived with these people. She lived with one family for a year, lived with another family for a year, helped the midwife deliver babies, helped the baker bake. Like, she had lived with these people for years, and he turned them on her. And so she gets stuck and gets dragged into a dungeon, gets chained up, and she has nothing left. So what does she do? She recites a lyric that she had heard another pregnant woman recite when she was helping the midwife deliver this woman's illegitimate child. And it's to Rumple, i.e. Rumpelstiltskin. They don't say that. They're called Rumple Goblins. And apparently, for Rumple Goblins to survive night fairy attacks, because night fairies actually use the Rumple's bodies to lay their eggs in, they need fresh children given willingly by the mother. And at this point, Maya is angry and mad, and she is feeling betrayed, and she wants nothing to do with the unborn child in her body, because the child is a remnant of her ex-lover. So she recites the rhyme, and a Rumple Goblin shows up and, tells her about the deal and what they're going to do. And of course, she gets a little bit more out of this deal than normal because she's shackled. And she says, well, I can't give you a child if I don't get out of here alive. So not only do you have to, blood for blood, but you have to help me escape. So the Rumple Goblin helps her escape and kills her. Spoiler, kills her ex-lover, who apparently had come into the cell to try and convince her to go to the pyre with dignity. Like, dude, this is your lover and your unborn child, and you're just gonna let them die? Okay, good. Kill him. Get him out of here. He explodes. Like, awesome. Get him out of here, because the man is a waste of space. Then she escapes. And she escapes to the enchanted woods because she doesn't have anywhere else to go. And she figures that if she goes into the woods, the villagers won't follow her because they're too afraid of the woods. So that's where she heads. She heads to the enchanted woods. She gets there, And that's when she stumbles upon Cerilia's house where she's been living. And of course, there's all kinds of rumors about the witch in the woods. And she has 3 heads and she has this huge spider that like eats people. And technically, Z could eat people, but she doesn't unless Cerelia tells her to. And so Cerelia takes in Maya and she heals her up and she feeds her and and she protects her. She at one point the villagers and Lord Graves are going to try and storm into the forest, and she attacks them using vines because she has nature magic. And that's another thing that is explained in the story. Witches are created, and they're created when their heart is torn from them. And so when the forest tore Cerelia's heart and child from her, it created her a witch, and she's a nature witch. And so she can grow plants, and she makes new plants, and her plants are just, the way that they're described in this book are just absolutely amazing. And so as the months go on, Maya is warming up to her, and they're becoming very close. And one thing that Cerelia had noticed when she was cleaning Maya up after she first showed up was the rumple mark on her wrist. And she doesn't comment on it. She wants Maya to trust her enough to tell her. At one point, Maya gets Z to lead her to a strawberry patch because Cerelia hasn't had strawberries in forever. The only thing she can grow in her garden are enchanted plants, except for these weird onions, rampion onions, that have started to grow ever since Maya showed up. And Maya is craving them, so she's eating them like crazy. So she follows Z to a strawberry patch. She picks these strawberries. When she gets back to the garden, she hears voices. And that's when she discovers that Lord Graves has led some of the villagers to the garden to attack the witch and Maya, and demands Maya to be handed over to him. And so Cerelia and him start fighting, and he stabs Cerelia in the chest. But Cerelia doesn't have a heart in her body. It's in the ground. And so the garden strikes back and attacks the villagers that showed up, and they all end up dying, including Lord Graves. Yay, bad guy's dead. Hallelujah. Then the garden takes Cerelia and keeps her encased in 3 days while it heals her. And of course, so then she comes back out, and her and Maya have a heart-to-heart, and talk about the Rumple Goblins. And unfortunately for Maya, Rumple magic is old magic. It's been around longer than Cerelia's been around. It's not something that Cerelia is super familiar with, so she has to use these tomes that she has to try and figure out if there is a way to get out of the contract. And so they call the Rumple Goblin before the child comes to find out exactly what wording is in the magic. And the wording is blood for blood. But the goblin tells her that there's no way around it, that Maya was giving him the child freely, and that there's no way they can break the contract. So now Maya and Cerelia have to figure out how to trick the goblin. And so they decide that what they're going to try to do is give the goblin a fake baby, or do a baby swap. So they create a baby out of these onions that they have. And they have Z extract a small amount of blood from the baby inside Maya and put it into a stone called a blood heart stone, and place that inside of the fake baby, and then put a rumple mark inside of the fake baby, under the hopes that this will be enough with the blood and the rumple mark that it will attract the Rumple Goblin to the baby and not to the real baby. And so they try, and of course at the same time Cerelia is also trying to, it's kind of like a soul. The Rumples don't want the soul of the baby. They just want the flesh. So what Cerelia is trying to do is transfer the soul of the baby from Maya to the fake baby, and essentially turning the fake baby into the real baby, and the real baby inside Maya into the fake baby. But she keeps failing, and she's practicing on these little bugs, and she keeps failing. Gets like halfway through it, and the bug doesn't make it. And so now she's really worried that she's not going to be able to save the baby, even though she promised Maya she would. So when the time comes, the goblin brings a bunch of extra help to help attack, right? And so they start attacking, and the garden starts attacking them, and they release the night fairies to go after them, and Z is there to help them go after anything and everything they possibly can to get to stop them from getting to Maya and the baby. And At first, the fake baby does attract them. Like the fake baby does pull them in, but the hearts, they leave the heart still behind. And it's the mark, the goblin mark, that pulled their attention. Well, it didn't work. They throw it, the fake baby, they burn the cradle, and they go after Maya inside the cottage. And they get Maya, and they kill Z, of course, because they can't just do anything normal. Kill Z and carry Maya away. And so now at this point, Sorelli is sitting here and she's completely lost, because what is she going to do? How is she going to help Maya? She promised her she would save her baby, and Maya makes her promise that no matter what happens, Sorelli will save her baby. She will not worry about Maya. She will worry about the baby. So Sorelli gets an idea. She tries with the bloodstone to try and get the baby, do the transfer of the baby, and it doesn't work. It gets like halfway there, and the description is really vivid. So you get this idea of like there's half an eyeball blinking at you, and the skin on half the arm is there, and it's super weird. And so then Sorelli is like, an idea comes to her. The bloodstone, the blood heart stone's not working, but what about her own heart? And she knows she's running out of time, because as soon as Maya has the baby, the goblins are gonna kill it. Like she doesn't have a whole lot of time, so she digs her heart out and puts her heart inside the baby. Now at this point, we get pushed back over to Maya, who's been taken by the Rumpels, and she's in a cave, and they're basically just sitting there waiting for her to have the baby. And she, of course, tells them, oh, if you take my baby from me, I'm going to become a witch. And of course, the Rumpel Goblin explains again that she agreed to give the baby to them freely, so there is no taking, so she can't claim that, and she won't be made into a witch. But they're going to go ahead and kill her just in case, so it doesn't happen. And of course, you get into the nitty gritty of the labor, and she pushes the baby out, and the Rumpel Goblin gets really upset and really mad. And she's like, well, what's going on? And he holds up an onion baby. What kind of trickery, sorcery is this? Da, da, da. And she gets a smile. And she feels this power build up inside of her. And he goes, no, you were giving us the baby for willingly. And she goes, you didn't take my baby. Sorelia did. And she uses her powers to stop the goblins. It ends up killing her. It does end up killing her, which is the sad part. She doesn't get to be with her baby, but Sorelia does. And Maya had stated earlier in the book that Sorelia was the mother that she never had, and she wants Sorelia to protect her child. And so Sorelia takes the baby, and now it's a baby. It's an actual baby. Like, Sorelia's heart made the magic work. And because the baby is Sorelia's heart, Sorelia can now leave the garden. So she decides she's going to take her to a tower, because Maya had told Sorelia a story, a fairy tale about a princess kept in a tower by her Gothel, which in this they translate to mean godmother. And so that's what Sorelia decides she's going to take her to a tower by the sea to protect her. And so the end of the story leaves with them exiting the garden, Sorelia being able to exit the garden for the very first time in over 100 years. And this was just so descriptive and so exciting to read, and it was so much fun. And so if you get a chance, it's Mother. It's on Amazon. It is absolutely amazing. Such a fun retelling, and I really hope that you enjoy it. Have a great day.